What's going on, guys? JayzTwoCents here, and I promised this video was coming, even though it's not new to market, it's new to me anyway, and we're gonna talk about it because it's still worth talking about, damn it. And that being Sapphire's R9 285 ITX compact graphics card. Now, this is the only R9 285 ITX form factor graphics card you are going to find, except for this one exists, and then there's other ones that they made that exist. But you know what I'm saying, I think. It's not like this was the only card made and then they shut down the assembly line and I'm the one that has it. That's not the case, although that would be kind of cool. The Octane Gaming Gear combo from Cooler Master features 7 backlighting colors, turbo mode, a Vago 3050 optical sensor, along with 4 levels of DPI adjustment. Now you can pwn noobs without pwning your wallet. Click the link in the description to learn more. Okay, so the R9 285 ITX compact is without a doubt compact. It lives up to its name. In fact, it's only a little bit longer than the PCI Express slot on the bottom of the card. Okay, we'll just kind of do a quick gloss over of the specs, since I'm sure somebody out there has never seen an R9 285, or maybe you're even considering buying this card. It is the 28 nanometer processor from AMD. It has 1792 stream processors in it and a 928 megahertz GPU core. Now, that magic 1 gigahertz number is kind of nice to see. Of course, we did overclock this thing, and we'll talk about how that thing went, or how that went a little bit later in the video. Now, for cooling this tiny little guy, you can see we've got a single fan that fills up most of the top of the card, followed by a heat sink that runs the entire length, tons and tons of fins, very heavy, coupled with a 4 heat pipe, copper heat pipe design. So you've got a lot of thermal transfer happening here in this block. When it comes to power, it does require a single 8-pin PCI Express power, and then it does have a PCI Express 3.0 interface. Now on the top here, you'll find the Sapphire button, which is for going between legacy BIOS and UEFI BIOS. And then on the back for I/O, this is a little bit interesting. We do have a dual link DVI, an HDMI 1.4a. I don't believe this is HDMI 2.0, and if I'm wrong, I will definitely stand corrected, but all I could find was that it's HDMI 1.4a, and it's got 2 mini display ports. And if you don't have a mini display port adapter or a mini display port monitor, it does include an adapter to a standard sized display port. On the back of the card, there is no backplate. I really wouldn't expect to see one at this card's price point and where it sits in the market and where it's placed. It does have a nice matte PCB, and everything about the card is very attractive. The black with the aluminum on here looks very, very nice. But of course, let's just go ahead and see how it stacks up. Just a quick note before we roll that transition is that all of these benchmarks were done at 1080p, considering the fact that this is a 2 gigabyte card. This card is designed for 1080p gaming, and so all the benchmarks you're gonna see are at 1080p. And whatever the settings were, or AA settings were, or what the type of AA used, I made sure I noted that in the benchmarks. But you're not going to see this card pitted up against any other cards, either AMD or NVIDIA, because the benchmarks that I'm using this time around are brand new titles. They're titles I haven't benchmarked any other card in this office with yet, well, with the exception of Grand Theft Auto 5. And in the future, we're going to start doing a complete list of where cards line up with my benchmark suite. We'll start doing a complete list of graphics cards and then placing them in performance order. So before you guys start telling me I should do comparative, saying, well, how does it stack up against such and such? You got to give me time. It takes hours upon hours to do these benchmarks and overclocks and stuff. So anyway, I just want to save you guys the time of typing that, but probably you guys have probably already typed it, even though the benchmarks aren't up yet. Anyway. Roll the transition.
Transition.
All right, so as you saw, this thing packs a hell of a punch. You know, it becomes a little bit of kind of a mind play when you see such a tiny card and you start to judge the card by its size. And I know not everybody does that. I think a lot of people do that. I think a lot of people like to see a nice, big, beefy graphics card with tons of fans and it's just got pipes everywhere and cables everywhere and lights everywhere because that's what you think gives you the power. It's like adding horsepower to a car by having body kits and stickers and spoilers and all the things that really don't make it faster. Sapphire has done a hell of a job of designing this card from the ground up. Really, the only thing AMD about this card is the GPU core which they're utilizing. Everything else about this card is completely designed in-house by Sapphire, and I think they've done a fantastic job, especially since so many builders these days are going more towards portability, efficiency, temperature or low temperatures, and small form factors, like especially with ITX being such a popular thing over the last couple of years. Temperature-wise, I expected this thing to get hotter, but it only got to 73 degrees Celsius in the most demanding tests. Now, what's cool about that is it was still practically silent. I say practically silent because the fan did ramp up to, I think it was 52%. I don't remember exactly what it was. I believe it was 52%, and it barely got louder than the slow spinning fans that I have on the test bench. Now those temperatures of course are in an open air test bench, and the reason why I do that is because that means the only thing limiting the cooling of the card is the card itself. If I put it into an enclosure or a closed case and I don't provide adequate airflow to it, then it's going to make the card seem like it's performing worse because the case environment is performing worse. So we do open air test benches because that gives us the only bottleneck for cooling would be the cooler itself. So as you can see, 73 degrees Celsius in open air in a vertical format rather than horizontal, which horizontal, believe it or not, actually gives sometimes some better cooling performance. This thing did a fantastic job. I think Sapphire's got a hell of a card on their hands here, especially to anyone who's looking at building a powerful 1080p portable small form factor gaming rig. Now this thing probably could play many titles at 1440p, not 4K, just not enough VRAM, but 1440p would be possible on medium to low settings depending on what you do, but you're going to start hitting sort of a VRAM limit, especially in modern titles with the 2 gigabytes of VRAM. Now we did overclock the VRAM from its effective 5500 from 1375, which is technically where it's at. Remember, AMD is that number times 4, where NVIDIA is that number times 2. Some people get confused about that. So we were able to take it up to 1400 megahertz times 4. So that was where my overclock was on that. And it did a pretty fantastic job. No coil whine whatsoever, 0 coil whine on this thing. And really, I can't say enough good about it. Small form factor graphics cards are not very common. In fact, the only other ITX card that's on the market is by MSI, and it's an NVIDIA brand, and it's not an AMD. I think a lot of people were afraid to take AMD GPUs and try and squish them down like this because a lot of times you need the massive cooler to keep the GCN architecture or the Tahiti or Hawaii GPUs, extremely hot GPUs. To cool them down, you need a massive cooler. But Sapphire took the efficiency of the 285, which was one of the really major selling points of AMD's 285 GPU, and was able to build a small form factor that doesn't overheat, doesn't get loud, and performs very, very well. Really, I can't think of any cons for this card whatsoever, and that's pretty rare. Maybe having the power plug point up instead of out the back, I don't know. I mean, this kind of makes sense, although when you have the power plug coming out the back, it does add a little bit of length that you might not be considering. This thing's only 171 millimeters long, 110 millimeters high, 35 millimeters thick. So it's extremely tiny. I mean, look at it compared to my hand. I mean, I don't even have that big of a hand. So I think maybe having the plug point up might have made a little more sense, but I don't know. So then you have the additional length of the plug you have to consider if you're looking at doing a really small form factor. That's really the only thing I can come up with to say that I might have considered differently with this card. But again, that's just me. So what do you guys think about this card? I know it's been out for a while. We finally got around to doing this review, and I'm interested to see how you guys feel about these small form factor ITX cards. Would you like to see more cards in small ITX form factor? You know, rumor has it that this might be the size of some of the newer 300 series cards coming out from AMD that are featuring the HBM or 3D stacked memory. Now, we don't have confirmation on any of that, and even if I had information on it, I wouldn't be talking about it. But since you don't have to have the RAM flanking the GPU, the RAM is on the GPU, which means you can save a lot of space. You could end up having top tier, high-end, you know, top of the line cards from AMD that are no bigger than this, which then kind of circles back to the mental game of thinking, I want a giant GPU because big GPUs mean more power. And if it's small, it can't possibly be good. Right? All right, guys, there you go. JayzTwoCents, thanks for watching. Really hope you guys have enjoyed today's video. Make sure you guys tune in on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Pacific time, where Jerry, aka Barnacles, and I, we do our tech talk. Not always about tech. Usually it's just us hanging out and kind of having fun with a bunch of you guys watching, and we really enjoy doing that show. So we'd like to get you guys to come on over and watch us live on Thursdays, 5 p.m. Pacific time here, California. That's minus, I think, 8 GMTs. Here's the problem with Pacific time. Pacific time is always changing. -7, -8, -7, -8. And I always forget which one's 7 and which one's 8. Is it daylight saving? Is it non-daylight saving? I don't know. See, this is kind of how Tech Talk goes. We're already having a Tech Talk of our own, just you and me. We're like monologuing here. Or I'm monologuing and you're listening. This just got really weird. I'm gonna go ahead and end it now. I'll see you guys in the next video.